I never expected my biggest workplace enemy to be someone I once considered a friend. But that's exactly what happened with Jake. Jake was charming, confident, and always had the manager's ear. But beneath that fake smile, a ruthless backstabber. It all started during a team meeting. Jake, out of nowhere, called me a lazy, incompetent loser in front of everyone. I was stunned, my hands clenched under the table as he rattled off lie after lie, how I slacked off, missed deadlines, and messed up projects. None of it was true, but the worst part? Some people actually believed him. The manager frowned at me, my coworkers whispered, and suddenly I felt like an outcast in my own office. After that, things got worse. Jake started spreading rumors, manipulating emails to make me look bad, and even faked evidence to pin mistakes on me. He wanted me gone, and he was getting close to making it happen. But what Jake didn't know, I was already one step ahead. Instead of reacting emotionally, I started documenting everything. Screenshots, emails, timestamps, even voice recordings when he ranted about his plans. If he was going to play dirty, I was going to outsmart him at his own game. The perfect opportunity came when Jake accidentally CC'd me in an email meant for our boss. It was a fabricated complaint about me, one he had planned to send using another coworker's name. That was all I needed. I forwarded the email to HR, along with all my collected evidence. Every shady tactic, every lie, every manipulation, laid out crystal clear. I didn't just defend myself, I exposed him. Within 24 hours, Jake was called into an emergency meeting. HR wasn't just mad, they were furious. Turns out Jake had pulled the same stunts in his previous job, and my evidence was the final nail in his coffin. Jake was fired on the spot. But karma wasn't done with him yet. Word got around fast, and no one wanted to hire a known liar. His career tanked. He tried reaching out to old colleagues for a job. No one helped him. And me? Not only did I keep my job, but my boss apologized and even offered me a promotion. The best part? The same co-workers who once whispered behind my back? They now looked at me with respect. Jake thought he could ruin me. Instead, he ruined himself. Revenge doesn't always mean fighting back with the same dirty tactics. Sometimes you just need to let karma do the work. I had a best friend. His name was Mark. We grew up together, went to the same college, and even had the same dream, working at a top marketing agency. We promised we'd always have each other's backs. Then, the perfect job opened up. We both applied. But we made a pact. No matter who gets it, we'll support each other. I was stupid to believe him. A week before my final interview, I got an email. Thank you for your application, but we have chosen another candidate. I was devastated. But hey, at least Mark would support me, right? Then I found out the truth. Mark stole my entire project pitch and presented it as his own. He told HR that I was unreliable and had a history of being fired. A complete lie. And the worst part? He got the job and didn't even tell me. I found out from a LinkedIn post. Mark stabbed me in the back to get ahead, but he had no idea who he was messing with. Most people would have exploded with anger. But me? I smiled, congratulated him, acted like I was moving on. But behind the scenes, I was plotting his downfall. Step 1. Collecting receipts. I found old texts of us discussing my project ideas. I dug through emails showing I developed them first. And then, goldmine, I found a voice memo of Mark drunkenly admitting he screwed me over. Step 2. Becoming his shadow. Mark thought I was out of the picture, but I got close to his coworkers. I started casually networking with his team. I learned about his work habits, and I found out he was already making enemies. Mark was lazy, overconfident. He took shortcuts and expected others to clean up his mess. I didn't have to destroy him. He was already doing it to himself. And then, the perfect opportunity came. One day, Mark posted online about a massive campaign he was leading. He took full credit and called himself a marketing genius. There was just one problem. The idea? Stolen from a coworker. The project? Half-baked and missing key data. The final contract? Signed with major errors that would cost the company thousands. So I sent an anonymous email, let's call it karma@justice.com. Inside, proof of his lies. Screenshots of his plagiarism, his drunken voice confession. Within 48 hours, his world came crashing down. Mark walked into the office on Monday like a king. By Tuesday, he was begging for mercy. HR launched a full-blown investigation. His team turned on him. The CEO personally called him in. He tried to deny everything. Then he blamed me. Too bad for him. I had solid proof. And just like that, Mark was fired in disgrace. Blacklisted from the industry, lost all his professional contacts. But wait, it gets so much better. A month later, the same company reached out to me. Turns out, after reviewing the evidence, they realized I was the real talent. They offered me the job. Mark? He had to take a low-paying gig at a no-name startup. The guy who stole my dream job? Now watching me live it. One day, Mark messaged me. Mark said, "Hey, no hard feelings, right?" Then he added, "Maybe you could help me out? I need a reference. You already know my answer." Blocked. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes the best payback is letting them destroy themselves. In 1996, I worked as a medical transcriptionist at a busy hospital. I loved my job, fast typing, listening to dictations, and turning doctors' words into official medical reports. Then, downsizing hit. Our department got slashed in half. Instead of laying me off, they transferred me to a different department, medical records. It wasn't my specialty, but I figured I'd adapt. But I never expected my new supervisor to be the worst human being alive. Her name was Nancy, and from day one she made it clear that she wanted me gone. Nancy had been at the hospital for over a decade and thought she ran the place. She nitpicked everything I did. She forgot to train me on key tasks. She gave me impossible deadlines, then scolded me for missing them. But the worst part? She was setting me up to fail probation. Nancy had been pushing her friend for the job I was given. Since she couldn't undo my transfer, she had one goal: make sure I got fired. And it was working. By my second month, I was drowning. One day my probation review came up. Nancy told HR I wasn't catching on fast enough. HR gave me a warning. Another mistake? I'd be fired. But then, help came from the most unexpected people. Two coworkers, Lisa and Frank, had seen everything. Lisa had worked under Nancy for years. She whispered to me, "You're not the first. She does this to every new hire she doesn't like." Frank, who was one level above Nancy, pulled me aside and said, "I know you're doing your job. She's setting you up." That's when we hatched a plan. Lisa secretly trained me after hours. She taught me everything Nancy refused to explain. Frank gave me inside info, like what reports Nancy had been falsifying to make me look bad. I started keeping detailed records of every conversation, every email, and every unreasonable demand. I stayed quiet. I played along. And then, Nancy made one fatal mistake. 3 days before my final probation review, Nancy scheduled a huge deadline for me. It was impossible. Even an experienced employee wouldn't finish it on time, but she had a plan. She left early that day knowing I'd fail. Then, she sent an email to HR saying I had refused to complete my assigned work. But she didn't know. Lisa had helped me finish everything the night before. Frank had already forwarded her email to HR, proving she was lying. I printed every single report, signed and time-stamped it. When HR called me in, I handed them everything. And just like that, Nancy was exposed. Nancy was called into HR. She denied everything, blamed me, lied through her teeth, until HR pulled out my printed reports, showing I had completed all my work on time. And when they asked about her false email to HR, she had no answer. She was officially written up. I passed probation. But that's not where the story ends, because karma wasn't done with her yet. Nancy kept her job, but she lost all power. HR started monitoring her closely. Frank blocked her from getting any promotions. Employees started speaking out. Turns out she had done this to others before me. 3 years later, the hospital did another round of layoffs, and this time, Nancy was the first to go. But wait, it gets so much better. In 2002, I had moved on to a better hospital. One day, I got a call from an old coworker. Guess who applied for a job at my new workplace? Nancy. Apparently, she couldn't find steady work after her termination. Hospitals talked to each other, and her reputation was trashed. I laughed. But here's where I took things one step further. I called my HR director and told them everything. And instead of just rejecting her application, they invited her for an interview. I made sure I was in the room. When she walked in, her face turned ghost white. She still had to sit through the entire interview, knowing she'd never get the job. And when she left, HR blacklisted her permanently. She never worked in healthcare again. That's the power of karma. Never underestimate who you mess with, because one day, they might hold your entire future in their hands. My husband and I worked for years to afford our dream home. It wasn't a mansion, but it was ours. A beautiful house in a nice neighborhood with a big yard and a fresh start. We thought we were moving into paradise. We were dead wrong. Right next door lived Tom and Lisa. On the surface, they seemed like a normal couple with 2 kids, but from the very first day we moved in, something felt off. Whenever we'd get something new, Lisa would throw a fit. We got our furniture delivered. She slammed her front door so hard the windows shook. Bought a brand new car. She stomped around her front yard and started yelling at her kids. Even when we got a simple rental car for a vacation, she found some excuse to take her anger out on her family. At first, we thought maybe she's just having a bad day. But then we realized she wasn't mad at her kids. She was mad at us. We tried to be friendly. We waved, we smiled, we even brought cookies once. Big mistake. Lisa barely muttered a thanks and slammed the door. Then Tom started acting weird. He'd stare at us from his porch whenever we pulled into our driveway. If my husband was outside washing the car, Tom would suddenly come outside and just stand there watching. One time, he even walked over and ran his hand over our new car and said, "Must be nice to waste money on this kind of stuff." Excuse me, waste money? My husband and I worked our asses off for everything we had. But instead of being happy for us, our neighbors let their jealousy eat them alive. Then one day, Tom took things too far. One afternoon, my husband went outside to find his brand new truck covered in specks of black paint. Not a little, a lot. It looked like someone took a spray can and just blasted it. We checked our cameras, and guess what? There was Tom, standing in front of his house, spray painting his old motorcycle, in the wind. And where did the excess paint go? All over my husband's new truck. We marched right over. "Hey Tom, did you realize your spray paint covered our truck?" "Not my problem. You shouldn't park so close." "Excuse me?" We were in our own driveway. We filed an insurance claim immediately. And here's where karma really kicked in. Tom was forced to pay thousands in damages because his spray painting was considered negligence. His insurance company dropped him because he had too many claims. Turns out, he had been pulling other reckless stunts. He was now stuck paying for repairs out of pocket. And let's just say, Lisa was not happy. After the paint disaster, things got even worse for them. Tom got even angrier. He started slamming his car doors, stomping around outside, and yelling at Lisa more than ever. Lisa became a full-time, miserable mess. She barely spoke to anyone anymore, just walked around with this permanent scowl. Even their kids started acting out. One day, I caught their son kicking our trash cans over before running inside. It was 5 years of this nonsense. Then, one day, karma struck again. One morning, Tom lost his job. Apparently, his anger issues caught up with him at work. His boss finally had enough and fired him. And let me tell you, Lisa did not take it well. Screaming matches in the driveway, Lisa throwing things at their trash bins, Tom sulking on the porch like a defeated villain, with no income and no savings because Tom was always too good to work overtime. Their downward spiral happened fast. They couldn't afford repairs on their house. Their car got repossessed. Lisa even tried selling her furniture online. And then the for sale sign went up. They had to move. A few years later, I ran into a former neighbor at the grocery store. Guess who tried to move back into the neighborhood? That's right, Tom and Lisa. But remember how Tom screwed over his insurance? Guess what? No insurance company wanted to cover him. No homeowner's insurance, no home loan approval, no home loan, no coming back. They were permanently locked out of the neighborhood. Lisa threw away 5 years of happiness because of jealousy. Tom lost everything because of his anger. Meanwhile, my husband and I, still thriving. Some people spend so much time hating others' success that they forget to build their own. And sometimes, karma takes care of everything.